A top 10 list. What are my top 10 DC comic covers in my collection? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome to Rash Visual Comics, a YouTube channel dedicated to the hobby and history of collecting comic books. This is a shout out to Alan, the comic book collector geek, who put out a Friday challenge asking the YouTube community their top 10 horror covers in their collection. Alan showed his top 10 EC covers, and while I don't have any EC comic books or EC horror comic books, I thought I would show my top 10 DC comic books from the 1970s in my collection. As I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, covers can really drive what collectors like and collect. And I feel like in the late 1960s to the mid 1970s, DC was just killing it with the quality of the covers on their comic books. I don't know if it was some kind of change in their art department, but there was certainly a big shift in terms of how their covers looked if you compared from like the 1960s to like the early 1970s. If you look at collecting horror comic books from the 1950s, they've become increasingly hard to find and very expensive. So I think a lot of collectors have been shifting to the 1970s, where there's actually a good number of horror titles with some really good covers. Okay, enough talk. Let's take a look at my top 10, my personal top 10 DC horror comic books in my collection. What's in the box? The first cover I want to show you is DC 100-page Super Spectacular number 4. This has a brilliant cover done by Berni Wrightson. This is actually a pretty tough book, especially in grade. And what's neat about this as well, too, is the back cover is the same. It has the same as the front cover, except without the trade dress. It's kind of like a virgin cover, I suppose. I thought what would have been cool is if you did a wraparound cover with showing this character's back instead of the front. I think that would have been really neat or interesting, but a brilliant cover nonetheless. The next one, and these are just in alphabetic order, is House of Secrets number 89 with a cover done by Morrow. Now, this is a really interesting cover in that I think they screwed up the trade dress. This has like a picture frame cover, and if you look at the font of the trade dress of this cover, it's different than the two issues surrounding it, all the issues surrounding it. And it matches that of another DC title that they had at that time called Dark Mansion of Forbidden Love, which I'll show over here. So it's an oddity. It's a weird one, but I think it's also like just a really good cover. Like, you know, you have your damsel in distress, you have this mysterious figure in the window, and you have this kind of interesting picture frame cover. So an unusual cover and a mistake I think DC made. Another House of Secrets cover. And this one is issue number 87. This one's done by Jack Sparling, and it's a painted cover. It's kind of like a gray tone painted cover. And here you have this mysterious hunchback with a ball and chain, and then this kind of washed out screaming woman in the background, again with this mysterious house. So House of Secrets, often you'll see a house on the cover. You know, it makes kind of sense. But yeah, a really outstanding cover by Jack Sparling. My third House of Secrets in my top 10, and this one's also done by Berni Wrightson, the same artist who did the cover for Weird Mystery Tales number 4. A great zombie cover with this kind of white, albino, bald kind of guy in bed and about to be, you know, who knows what these zombies are going to do to him, but no, I don't own a House of Secrets 92, which is the first Swamp Thing, but I do love this cover, and maybe my favorite Wrightson cover in this series. So there you go, House of Secrets number 100. If you're looking for really good covers that are probably a little underrated, Phantom Stranger has like just a spectacular array of quality covers. This is number 12 in the series, and this is a cover done by Neal Adams. As I mentioned, like DC was just absolutely killing it at this time. Neal Adams is one of the reasons why. He did so many covers, and not just horror, but superhero as well too, that I feel are just outstanding. So yeah, Phantom Stranger number 12. I would be remiss by not including a cover from the Swamp Thing series, the first 10 issues in particular that had Berni Wrightson covers. It's really hard to choose from one of the 10. I don't have the complete series, but number 5 is probably my favorite. And this is a cover that's been homaged many times, even by Berni Wrightson himself. And it's probably my favorite, although it's kind of, tough to choose. You got the guy with the axe. You have like a mountain of people kind of like trying to like subdue Swamp Thing. But I feel like it's a classic cover by Berni Wrightson. Another artist who did a lot of really great covers during this time is Mike Kaluta. And this is Weird Mystery Tales number 1. And the reason why I included this cover, it may not seem as horrifying, is that in the, I think, early 2000s, I played this game called Fatal Frame. And there was this one part of the game that scared the living crap out of me when, you're directing this character and these hands just came out of the floor and grabbed at me. And it's an amazing, scary horror genre game. And this kind of reminds me of that game. It's still a great cover by Mike Kaluta. I do believe he has better ones from this time. I don't own any of them, but it's certainly one of my favorites. It's also the first appearance of Destiny, who's one of the Endless, if you read Sandman. So, Weird War, and it's interesting to note that for a long time you weren't allowed to use the word weird on the cover of a comic book. And Weird War has a lot of wonderful covers. This is kind of my favorite that I owned, because it's just so dramatic. So when I originally saw this cover, I thought it was done by Nick Cardy, but I was wrong. It's actually done by Luis Dominguez, an artist I don't know very much about, but it just has this kind of impact when you look at it that I thought, wow, imagine being these sailors encountering this U-boat. Yeah. A wonderful cover that combines kind of like war and horror. One of the best series for covers from the 70s from DC is Witching Hour. And this is Witching Hour number 13, with a cover done by Neal Adams. To me, it's kind of this kind of classic spider gray tone cover showing just raw, frightened emotion. So, a wonderful cover by Neal Adams. And I think, it's just breathtaking. I have to include one more from Witching Hour, and this is issue number 41. And it's Nick Cardy, who did a lot of the covers for Witching Hour, and this one in particular kind of sticks with me just because I have other comic books from that time period, and in the ads of those comic books, they would kind of show covers from other DC comic books at this time. And this one would always kind of like haunt me because it's certainly kind of frightening. It's a lot of the covers have skulls, and it's just that, I'll post the ad over here. It's like, wow. And it's there. And I always kind of wanted to have it just because I saw it in the ad. And you know what? The story's actually pretty good too. So, Nick Cardy, one of the artists who did a lot of covers for DC at that time, and now this is one of my favorite. The last one I want to show it's not what I would call like a great cover, but this is more for just kind of sentimental reasons. And you'll notice like I have one in the back there as well too. Just because this comic book is one of the first ones that I've read or remember reading. And as a Canadian, I also love hockey. And during this time in the 70s is when you had like what you would call like tough hockey where fights would break out all the time. And the story of this, I just remember it has like a French Canadian whose name is Big Jacques, and his kind of encounter with a goalie, and the goalie mask, I think is also perfect for that time. I can show you an example of a goalie that had a great mask. So this is just more for sentimental reasons. This is Strange Sports Stories number 5. And this is kind of like my reader copy. Yeah. What was the sinister secret of the goalie who wore the hockey mask of death? And this predates like Jason and Friday the 13th. So just something that's kind of geared to my heart in terms of just nostalgia. So there you go. There's my top 10 DC horror covers. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun putting this together. And I hope to see other people or in the community on YouTube, whatnot, that will show their top 10 horror comic books, because they certainly are popular and they're great. And I did an episode as well on the horror genre, looking a little more at the previous history, and you can check it out over here. So thanks for watching, and I hope you see you in the next video. And until then, happy hunting and collecting.